We wanted to find out a little bit more about Agria Equine Insurance because they have come on board with the Eventing podcast. They have a brilliant message to share, and I'm delighted to say Vicky Wentworth, Chief Executive of Agria UK, is with me. Vicky, am I right in thinking that there's also a service that enables you to speak to, without it affecting your premiums, a vet that will give you guidance and advice on actually the next steps that you should be taking?
Yeah, so we were really lucky. Actually, last year we launched something called Agria Vet Guide, and it's a model that sort of exists in lesser forms in the UK currently. So there's many opportunities where you can phone a veterinary nurse with your insurance company and get some advice on the telephone, etc. We actually decided that we needed to go one step further. We have the Agria Vet Guide app. Is you can book an appointment. You can book it literally within 10 minutes if there's availability, so it's really, really fast. It's immediate. And you can video call with a vet. So for me, this was really, really important because it means that if there is something happening, you are very unsure of the next steps you might want to take. Sometimes it's minor, yeah, for sure, you can, but sometimes it might actually be more serious. So you're quite difficult. We don't all have a view of what our horse might be doing when it's colicking, for example. Or it might be lame. You might have got on it and thought, you know what, it doesn't feel quite right today, feels a bit footy, perhaps the gait isn't quite consistent. You can stick it on a lunge and you can talk to it, you can have it on the video talking to a vet. So the vet is then very able at the end of the line to be able to substantiate whether they feel, given what they've seen, your animal needs to go to the vet straight away. So you absolutely need to make a call, or whether in fact, you could bide a little bit of time. You don't have to go for an emergency call out. You don't necessarily have to do it on a Sunday. You could do it on a Monday. So all of these things just allow customers to make, I suppose, more careful and considered decisions about how they then go forwards and treat their horse.
All about horse welfare and actually speed and access. You make a very good point. Can you avoid that emergency vet call out fee? It is massively useful. Welcome, listeners, to a brand new Horse of a Lifetime show, which is brought to you by Agria. Now, today's guest, I'll be totally honest, I feel quite cruel putting him on the spot to pick a horse of a lifetime, a horse of a career. William Fox-Pitt, where on earth do we start? Is there one that springs to mind?
Well, I've been so lucky to have had amazing team of good horses in my career that have kept me going for all those years. So that is very hard to pick out an individual, but I think it's got to be Tamarillo. He was an extraordinary horse, and he took me around the world. He put me on the map. I got him when I was reasonably young, 25, and he'd had a bit of history with his previous jockey, so they were trying to see whether he would gel with somebody else. And the Guinnesses showed me him once when I was, I think, trying a hunter. They said, now this one, he said, you can look at this one, but you can't touch him. Oh, blimey, okay, show me. So they showed me him in the stable. Oh, it's a nice, pretty little Arab. And I thought no more of it, thinking keep well away. He was obviously sorted. And then a few months later, I think they rang me up and they said, I think you better come and touch him. We'd like you to have a sit on him. And they explained the situation, and it went from there. So I took him on age 7. So he'd had a bit of a start to life, bred by the Guinnesses on their part-bred Arab stud, and pure Arab stud. And he came to me sort of towards the end of his 7th year, and how amazing was he?
So when you first got on him, how did that partnership feel initially? Because he would be quite diminutive, you would be very tall. Is that fair? How big was he?
Yeah, absolutely. 16'2", but
okay.
He was quite short, not a big 16'2", very short in front, short back. I was pretty big on him. He's unlike anything I'd ever sat on. I mean, I'd ridden some lovely horses, Cosmopolitan Sharker, but he felt like a completely different animal. He was agile, he was quick, he was sharp, he was so many different qualities. I thought, I quite fancied myself on him, to be honest. I thought, well, he might not go very well, but he's quite pretty, and I'd look good on him. He flashed his toes, and I quite, as a boy, I thought, oh, I've never had one that quite flashes his toes like that. Cosmopolitan was a lovely horse, but he really couldn't trot his way out of a paper bag. Charker was a nice mover, but quite normal. And I thought, oh, I quite fancy myself on this flashy number. So I thought, well, I'm going to just thinking, well, learn to ride him. And that was where it all started. But he was a real rubber ball of a horse, which I hadn't had before.
I was going to say, so you had to learn to ride him. So how did you adapt your style to suit him?
Well, it took quite a long time. He was very sensitive, very reacted to me, very reactive, very sensitive, very opinionated. Actually, some minutes dead lazy, and some minutes completely electric. So you had to be very sharp to adjust to the particular mood. But he did suit me because he did like long legs. He liked a man riding him. We had a very good relationship. Horse rider. He didn't love me off the horse. He thought I was a bit of a big, terrifying person. He's not a man lover.
Okay,
As a character,
interesting.
he loves a girl, not a man. But when I was on his back, I would say he prefers a man to a woman. With a girl, without the leg and the control, he kind of thinks, oh, you're joking, aren't you? Really? Do you really mean that? Oh, I'm not sure I want to do that. Whereas with a bloke, he's actually feels more authority is coming his way, and he needed that confidence. I think he really enjoyed a man's approach because he'd been started by girls, obviously on the stud and doing stuff, and I think maybe they've given him too many choices, and he'd been a little bit quick to ignore them. Whereas with a bloke on board, he thought, okay, right, I can hear that, I better get on and do that. Oh yeah, all right, it's quite obvious. So I think as a rider, I'm quite a simple rider, and he quite liked that control of just getting on with it.
So in terms of managing him on the ground, you've got a great team around you led by Jackie Potts. And what did they do differently, or did they do anything differently on the ground to kind of manage him so that you didn't have to have that sort of partnership with him if that wasn't something that he enjoyed so much?
Yeah, I would not manage him on the ground at all. That wasn't my role. I was very busy with all my other horses anyway. I'm on their back, I'm not in the stable. So I just knew that he was loved by Jackie, cared for. He had all the care, physio and veterinary and all the kind of the work he needed from her. My job was to ride him, not pat him. So we had a very good
working relationship. And did you think, you say you had to kind of find the key to him and learn to ride him, and he was that sort of ball of elasticity. At what point did you think, you've already ridden a 5-star winner by this point, so which point did you think, actually, he could do this, he could win at the very top level?
I think when I first rode him, I thought, wow, he is extraordinary. He's got something. If I can get him to believe in me, I've got a good horse. And that was very transparent, visible early on. I was also aware that I really had my work cut out to get his respect, and it was going to take time. And I'm very happy to give horses time. But he might have doubted me in the beginning, like he said, oh, really, I've really got to do that. But he didn't. He got confidence from me that this is what was happening, and he enjoyed that simple approach. Just get on and do it. This is all I'm asking. And, I can do that. Actually, he was a very easy galloper. He was so athletic and elastic. It took so little out of him. Nothing. He thought dressage was hard work, but that was it. Nothing else was galloping was a breeze. Jumping was a breeze. He just thought sometimes collection was a bit of a arseache.
I'm sure there's plenty of horses that feel the same.
There's a few like that. And no, he really very quickly, the first year I had him, I can remember very clearly, I took him to Cornbury as his first or second novice, and he was quite hard to get his blood up. He really, can I really be bothered with this? It's quite boring. So I decided that he needed his blood up. And I'm not generally a fast rider, but I thought, right, he's going to have to learn to go. Anyway, he flew around the cross country. My mother was there, and she thought I'd gone quite crazy. She did tell me as a youngster once. She said, "Well, if you go fast enough, they can't stop." That's always been in my mind. That's something that you couldn't possibly mention these days. But he said, so I had him stop at number 12. He said, for goodness sake, well, surely if you were going fast enough, you couldn't have stopped anyway. So what were you doing fiddling around? So I had in the back of my mind, right, I'm going to get on now and Tam's going to go. And he flew round with goodness knows how many time faults I would have got in the modern day for too fast.
Too fast,
faults.
the TFs.
It didn't exist in those days. So I think it was about a minute inside the time, came second, and it was all great excitement. Off I went to his next event, which was Great Missenden, Chris Collins's place. And he led the dressage on like 18 clear show jumping. And I thought, I've nailed it. Here we go. This is going to be a breeze around here. A little bank out of the wood. And he stopped on the bank. I flew out of the wood, over the log, down the drop, landed on my feet with him still on the bank. And I remember looking at him. And of course, he at that point was too scared to come off the bank. So he was still on the bank, looking at me, thinking, oh my God, what's just happened? Oh my God, panic. So I got back on the bank and got back on him on the bank and then said, now jump off. And he said, oh, that's fine.
Well, if you've done it, I can do it.
He never, after that day, he never ever had that kind of panic moment where he just thought, can't jump off. I mean, he just thought jumping off the bank was terrifying and he wasn't going to do it, simple as that. But because he hadn't got away with not doing it, and I can remember this day climbing on the bank to get on him on the bank to then say, jump off. Nowadays, I'd probably be eliminated for presenting from a standstill or whatever.
Well, you'd be eliminated for falling off. There you go.
So exactly, I couldn't have gone on.
Couldn't have done it.
So, and he did that, and he then never looked back. He was then going, okay, I've got it now. You mean business? There's no second go. And did his intermediates. He won his first, I suppose, now it'd be called 2-star. In the old days, it'd be called 1-star. Blarney Castle. And MW and Finn and I had a lot of fun with him. Took us, as I said, horse of a lifetime. He took me around the world, took me to Athens, Jerez, Aachen, and he won badminton in Burley. There was a few little near misses on the way, which is, I don't like to dwell on those, but he was an extraordinary one-off horse.
What was it about him that actually, when he got to that top level, made him so special, that actually sets him apart for you as your horse of a lifetime?
He had amazing, say self-belief's not the right thing, but he did think he was the best. He had that athletic ability that just found stuff so easy. You always kind of were looking for a question to ask him where he actually had to focus a little bit. He was so nimble across the ground. I mean, the year he won badminton and Burley, both year it was in a torrential weather, bog ground. I can remember at badminton, Yogi and I go, do we run him, don't we run him? I need a qualification for badminton, but this is bottomless. We obviously had the steeplechase, and he just breezed around. He thought it was just a walk in the park in the ground. The year he won Burley, conditions were really, really, really tough. The ground was wet, sticky, and the weather was hot. And he thought, piece of cake. He just had that class, and that's what set him above everything, really. Nowadays, in our modern sport, he would still be very competitive because he's very flashy. He's a very careful jumper. But there aren't many horses that would have done our old format and our new. So that sets him apart, really.
I was going to say he sort of bridged those two eras, didn't he? Because, I mean, he was second at badminton in 2002 when it was still very much the long format of the sport. Then he went on to win Burley 2008. So, I mean, he had a very, very top-level career and sort of was at the peak of his powers for a long time. Athens, I have to ask you, because I know that was the one that got away that you've sort of alluded to. How much pleasure did it give you and the team actually after Athens to bring him back to the very, very top level?
Yeah, Athens was a real blow. He was top of his game. He was a great jumper, and I didn't get to jump him.
On the final day,
the final day.
Did he chip a stifle?
He fractured his stifle. He flew around the cross country, easy inside the time, and was lame. Because can't believe it. Could have happened, but this is our sport. Things do happen, and I think I never doubted that he would come back. Actually, it was a very clear injury. It didn't affect any functioning joints or ligaments. It was just a crack and when the bone healed, the bone healed. So I never doubted that he would come back. I mean, he was a horse that historically had a few ailments. He wasn't, his career wasn't uninterrupted. He had quite a few little holidays, and we were managing various things going forward because he was so extravagant and so exuberant. I think he put himself under a lot of pressure, and I think I would always say, sometimes the soundest horses in the world are the most or the best economists, and he was not an economist. Put himself under a lot of stress, a lot of duress, and he therefore had quite a lot of time on the sidelines. But from that injury, there was always going to be a comeback. He wasn't old. I'm trying to remember what year. Athens was 2004. Was Aachen 2006?
Yep.
So he came back for that, and again, it was another bit of a glitch.
He was also individual silver medal at Blenheim in that really wet Europeans the year after Athens. Yeah.
So he had again in the wet European.
Yeah.
And that was a really unlucky moment. He was beaten by Zara, who was the best on the day, but we had a real dressage, a bad luck dressage, because he performed one of the best tests of his career, and there was quite a big discrepancy in his marks, and that cost him gold medal, to be honest, because he really did fly.
Will, thank you for sharing the story of Tamarillo with us.
Enough about Tamarillo, enough about him. But I should probably have talked also about Chile Morning.
We could do another one. I mean, I'm not that
Chile
strict on the
Morning
one
is
horse.
a very different case, but a very amazing horse who was so different to Tamarillo. He was such an amazing... He came to me when he was nearly double Tamarillo's age. He didn't come to me till 12. And when I think of what he gave me, and he sadly... The biggest sadness for him is that he should have won the World Championships and the Olympics, and he only won badminton. But there, as I said, ifs and buts, and no regrets. But that was how good he was. He won down in the World Championships, cost him.
Was it the Europeans?
The Worlds in Aralapau. He was in the lead going to show jumping.
I had one down. He had a medal, didn't he?
He got a bronze.
He got a bronze. Yeah.
But he was in gold, and that was so unlucky. We'd moved venues. We'd moved from the eventing site into Aralapau to a show jumping venue. And as a stallion, he got very unsettled in the transport, arriving at a new set of stables, new horses, show jumpers there, everyone there. And he was so lit up and excited. By the time I got on him for the show jumping, he was absolutely flat. And the cross country had also been demanding in that wet. He'd really exerted himself the day before. But I can remember when I got off the show jumping, I just had this slightly wet lettuce under me, and I thought, no, where is he? And he tried so hard. He had one down, but he could have had 5 down. So I got to say I was lucky, but that was very sad because that was a moment that was a little bit too close.
One that got away.
And then the other one that is probably worse was the Olympics in Rio. Because he led the dressage, which was a miracle for me but he led the dressage, and I'd gone the right way. That was the main concern of everyone would bloody Fox-Pitt remember which way to turn or what to do, because I'd had my head injury.
Yeah.
Dan Hughes had walked the course with me because he didn't believe I was going to go the right way and jump the right jumps on the course. And stupidly, I decided to take an option. I couldn't turn to a skinny because I'd come a bit too fast. That was my fault. But I then, instead of turning right and looping back and then jumping the long way, I crossed my tracks. So it wasn't even a fault of the horse or me.
Technical.
It was just purely technical, stupid. In my moment of plan B, I got plan B wrong. And I had plan B all worked out. So, and then to be insult to injury, he then jumped 2 clears of show jumping on the last day, which to this day I wish he hadn't. So it was his day. It was a little bit of a moment that I won't forget.
I think it gives you an insight as well into your mindset and to be a top level competitor. There are those moments in your career that you can pinpoint and actually will always bug you because you are always desiring to be the best that you can possibly be.
I'm an event rider, and we've all got them.
Exactly. William, thank you for sharing your Tamarillo stories and your horse for lifetime.
Thank you very much for asking me.